Webcam should be going about now, and audio. There we go. Wow. As you will have noticed, I've got my Moodle shirt on. I've even dressed up especially for the occasion. Yeah, if people can give me just some quick feedback that the audio and the camera are okay. Let's not comment on the content of the video at this point. I think it's always nice to just say hello and let people know who you are. Sound a little low, okay. I think I've got my microphone more or less at the max, so I'll just try and speak nice and clearly, and with my strong Kiwi accent that you may have noticed, which of course isn't a Kiwi accent, it's actually an English accent. Northwest of England, Manchester, Liverpool kind of accent, but quite posh in a way. Someone else with low audio. Just going to see if I can boost my sound a little bit. Let's see if we can just take that a little bit louder. See if that makes any difference for people. I should keep talking. So some people are saying the audio is good. Some people are saying it's not so good. I guess if it's good for some people, it must be this end. It must be okay. So maybe just try and boost your local speakers or headphones or whatever you're doing. Cool. Video is a bit choppy. That could just be me. I think I've actually got it set to a low level because I'm going to switch it off in a minute. It really just is a courtesy to say hello to people. In fact, I might switch it off now. I'll do a nice look and then just try and pause it for a second. Oh, I missed. Try that again. Trying to look interesting. There you go. Looking young and interesting. Very businesslike. Thanks, Lee. Trying my best on a Sunday morning here in New Zealand, of course. Surprised I'm even out of bed at this time of day. Pensive, yes. Hi, Wendy. Good to see you. Just got one or two people rocking in at the last minute here. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so yeah, my name is Stuart Mealor. Very nice introduction from Julian there. I do head up the Moodle partner, HRDNZ, in New Zealand, which actually stands for Human Resource Development, which is obviously, if you come from a trading or a business background, HRD is probably one of those acronyms that you know very well. If you're from an IT background, it may mean absolutely nothing to you, probably a heating and ventilation system or something. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Moodle in business, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do most of this today through screen sharing. We tested that out yesterday. I'm not going to be jumping around too much in the screen sharing, so we're hoping it's going to work quite well. So I'm just going to switch to the presenting view here. Oh, that's made my video a lot bigger, which is excellent. I wasn't expecting that. So we've got a few polls there, and what I thought would be nice is just for people to start filling those in while I'm talking here, and we'll get some idea of the group that's here, because of course the traditional audience for Moodle, traditional users and the traditional people that attend the Moodle Moot, I guess are mainly teachers, and then I guess you could say the second most populous group would be administrators or technologists. So business people or commercial people, private training enterprises tend to be a little bit underrepresented in comparison to universities and schools. So I thought it would be interesting to do this. So we can see, hopefully you can see those results as well. I have switched broadcast on so we can see. The group here, we've got a lot of people with extensive knowledge, which is good, and some experts and some moderates. So that's cool. We haven't got anyone that's really new to Moodle, which is good for this particular session, I think. Almost half in public education, which is fine. I guess public education these days is having to think in a more business-like way. You know, we're not getting quite so much funding. We're in a more competitive environment. Maybe we're trying to attract international students. You know, even in public education, we do have a more of a business kind of focus on things these days. But as we can see there, quite a good spread between, you know, not-for-profits and independent trainers, commercial providers. I'm interested what the other is. If you did other, you might want to just put something in the chat if you want to, just to let us know. Okay, I go back and forth. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Some people, of course, if you're a freelancer, you may find yourself working in 2 or 3 different environments. And then just looking at the version of Moodle people are using. This is quite interesting. Roughly half of us using Moodle 2.2, which I guess is the you know, not a surprise. That is the current most stable, up-to-date version, so that's appropriate. Lots of people, of course, on 1.9. Probably most of those people, some of your work this year is, and right now, is going to be around planning your migrations and testing your migrations and testing Moodle 2.2 or even 2.3 in June. So, you know, unsurprising that we see that kind of divide there. That's pretty much what I expected to see. That's cool. So we'll have some other little polls later as well, which people can do. But what I'm going to do for most of this session is just screen share from a particular course that I have, which I use for this sort of presentation. So I'm going to switch into presenter mode, presentation mode, and I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully, if I've set up this all right, I'm going to go and share my Firefox screen because I'm using Safari at the moment. And when I share my Firefox screen, you should see pretty much what I'm seeing on my screen. Yeah, it's here. That's cool. Unfortunately, I can't see the chat at the same time as I'm using full screen, but I believe that if people do post anything into the chat, then it actually comes up in a little window, and I can see that. Thanks, Teresa. Thanks, Bill. So I can see a little pop-up message there. Hopefully, I'll be able to keep an eye on that if people have got questions as we go. So thanks, Marielle. Looks good. Okay. Just for your information, I attended a session yesterday, and the presenter was using screen sharing, and I found that if I clicked on the full screen option on my screen, the image was a lot sharper. It just kind of sized it to the same resolution or something. So you might find that flicking into full screen on your view actually gives a sharper image. But again, you know, you would need to just pop back out of full screen if you want to see what's happening in the chat area or want to post a chat message. Okay, so there's just a little bit about myself on the side there. Yes, as Julian said, you know, I'm running a Moodle partner. Initially, in my background, I was a teacher, a lot of applications training. So back in those days, things like Microsoft Office and PageMaker and Dreamweaver and some of those sorts of technologies. I also, at that point when I was teaching, started to do, you know, my business degree, and then I did a MBA in international business. Initially, though, I was actually a graphic designer before I went into education. So so when I combine things like graphic design skills and web design skills and business skills, then I kind of feel like I'm in the right place today to be heading up a Moodle partner and trying to do something good in terms of creating revenue for Moodle, but also, you know, being very cognizant of the way the Moodle community works and the fact that we can actually share lots of things, but still run a very successful business, and that's always been an interesting balancing act for me, because of course when you go through your MBA, everything you learn is about making money and controlling your intellectual property and so on and so forth. So it's quite a big change to then work with an open source product, which is so open source and so community driven. It's always quite a challenge. If you know me from Moodle.org, it's possibly the fact that I run the Moodle Course Creator Certificate. So that was a scheme that we wrote a good few years ago now. And the MCCC is the official standard for teachers to achieve in competency using Moodle. And we support the other Moodle partners around the world in being able to implement that process and that certification in a standardized way that's globally standardized, which, as you can imagine, is actually quite a challenging job itself a lot of the time when we're dealing with people in German and Spanish and Portuguese and so on, and trying to ensure that that certification is valid and equivalent in all these different places. I also run the business uses and the certification area and the database forum on Moodle.org. So I try to contribute in a number of different areas. Sometimes I wish I'd been a programmer. So, like, you know, when you see things that are broken and you just wish you could go and fix them. Some days I just so wish I'd been a developer and a programmer, but I'm not. And we have some extremely talented people who are far better than I'm ever going to be at doing that. So I think that the sensible thing is to kind of focus on what you're good at, focus on your core skills, and try and make the contribution in that way. So as you can see, I'm actually using a course here rather than a PowerPoint presentation because it allows me to jump off and look at a few things live. Over the past few years, I have made an effort to try and stimulate the Moodle in business community, whether that's just through some of these online forums or the LinkedIn group. There's a link up there in the top right, or the business uses area itself on Moodle.org. You know, always trying to just encourage people in the more commercial sector to contribute and get involved and discuss things, because they can learn a lot from teachers. But I think also that teachers and trainers can learn a lot from business people. So that's cool. So this little list here is basically, if you like, the main strands of questions that I might get asked at Moodle conferences, or if we're running a workshop in a business setting for Moodle, or if we're working with clients that we host who are running small businesses. These tend to be the areas that constantly come through as being the main questions. These guys don't tend to ask, oh, how do I format a document as a PDF, or how do I create a quiz? They're important, but business users often have these, what I might call higher level or slightly further back level questions rather than the nuts and bolts of teaching. There's a lot of things here which kind of need answering or need discussing or need evaluating before we even get to that stage. So what I'm going to do is just use this little lesson, which one day, oh, there you go, it's logged me out, fantastic. At least it's secure, there we go. So this is simply a Moodle lesson, and this is in a course that you can all get to, by the way. Okay, this is a course that is completely open and completely free and allows guest access. So don't worry about exactly where that is at the moment. I can give you a link to that at the end and talk about where that is. So basically, a quick lesson, and I guess ultimately looking at the question, can Moodle be an effective training or learning management system solution in a business or in the commercial sector? We're pretty well, I mean, the question about whether it can do it in a school or a university is obviously very well answered. You know, there are hundreds and thousands of schools and universities that do this. I'm sure there are hundreds and thousands of small businesses that do it as well, but they don't tend to share their experiences. They don't tend to go on Moodle.org and be quite as vocal in saying, this is what we found, this is how we solved it, this is what I want to share with you. So we have a lot less data in some ways to deal with. and to analyze. So that, I guess, is the key question in this first lesson. And what I would suggest is that we're really dealing with two groups here. The first group being organisations that receive, state or county or funding from the public purse in some way. And obviously we've got those schools and colleges and polytechnics and universities. I do take on board, and it's quite obvious that universities, perhaps in particular there, are having to be a lot more driven in terms of how they fund their operations. With the economics that we're dealing with in the world today, there isn't as much money to just go into these educational provisions and establishments as there used to be. And I'd be hard pressed to think of a country around the world right now that is still getting lots and lots of money poured into education in the way it might have been during the 80s or 90s. The other group on the right hand side are organisations that have traditionally always been self-funded. So we have corporates and business and not-for-profits and public sector charities. These are organisations that don't tend to get as much money from government or from those central sources. And therefore, when they spend money, that money tends to be a lot closer to the use. And the analysis of whether that money is being well spent tends to be easier to make, and it tends to be faster. And I'll expand on that as we go. So that first group, when we're looking at our learning management system, and we're looking at Moodle, we might measure our success, if you like, by looking at students and student outcomes. So we might say how many students are logging in, how many people access it from home, how many of our teachers are using it, and take a view of this learning management system and learning provision, and analyze it from an outcome or a student or a teacher perspective. In the second group, we might use very different ways, and perhaps we should be using very different ways of measuring the success. And we'd look at some very different things here. We would be looking at how much it cost us. More importantly, is it saving us money? Is it generating new money because we can suddenly deliver our courses to students who are overseas? What are our competitors doing? Maybe we're only running online courses because our competitors are, and that's starting to eat into our business. What type of new opportunities does it provide for us? Can we sell our courses to other organizations? Can we use Moodle networking to put our courses on, let's say, health and safety? Can we then license our courses using Moodle networking into other people's Moodle sites? Lots of different ways of thinking about our Moodle site when we're in business. So the decision factors for that first group tend to be around, and this is the schools and universities and colleges, they tend to be around, well, Moodle costs nothing, so that's good. That's a good starting point. We've got a network within the school or university. We can set Moodle up on a server. That's probably pretty easy. We've got our IT guys who can research that and know what to do. Education is our core business, so it kind of makes sense that we have, classrooms and online and flexible learning and whatever. And we don't get a lot of resistance to Moodle because technology is now such an accepted part of education. We don't balk at the idea of having iPads or computers in every room, blah blah blah. Computers are a tool of the trade as far as education is concerned now. That's cool. The second group, however, the people who are working in a more commercial sector, would start off with perhaps the same decision factors. Well, Moodle costs nothing, that's great. But we don't necessarily have the server capability internally or network to actually install that and run it. Even if we did, we'd be asking our IT staff to do extra work, and perhaps in a small place small company, small organization, we only have one member of staff looking after IT, or even we outsource IT and a man arrives in a van once a month to try and sort out why our mail's disappearing, quite a different scenario. The fourth point I think is really interesting because training might not be your core business. And in fact, it's often an unwanted expense. And what I mean by that is that in a commercial environment, we may have to provide some training. And good examples might be induction training for staff, for new starters, health and safety training, if we're in an environment where there's machinery. We might have compliance training if we're in the financial sector. And these training aspects are not something that we necessarily as a board of directors say, oh yes, it's excellent, we should provide health and safety training. There's no choice in it. We have to provide these things. And the fifth point kind of leads on from that in this context, technology and training are not automatically linked. It isn't as obvious that online learning through Moodle is an effective solution, because these organizations have been running possibly for many years, sending people on training courses. Maybe there's an organization with various offices around the country, and once a year or a couple of times a year, we all get together and we have training, and people love that. They love the fact that they're getting a day off work. They love the fact that their travel expenses are paid. They're going to meet up with people they haven't seen for a while. They'll probably have a beer at night. When you actually say to some people, we're not going to do that anymore, what's going to happen is all the material will be online, and we might give you an hour a week in a room somewhere in the back of the office here to access it on computer. But we also expect you to access this material and learn it from home and post your thoughts in a forum. And that's a million miles away from the experience that some of these organizations may have had. So we're not actually talking about perhaps a technological barrier. We're talking about a change management program there. We're talking about changing the culture of an organization, which just isn't a given in a commercial setting. We can see there's no tea and cakes. Absolutely, Teresa. People don't like change, as Bill's mentioned, and the part of the attraction of a training event is, for some people, is going away and being out of the office and having a nice lunch. And yeah, absolutely. This image, which I've obviously just grabbed off Moodle.org, shows the growth of the Moodle.org population. So that's the users on Moodle.org. And I actually joined somewhere back here, I think roughly around here at the beginning, because I was something like user 12,000. So it's right back here somewhere. And it's quite humbling when you look at that and see how many users there are today. It's interesting, maybe that's just flattening off slightly there, that curve, maybe. It's no surprise, therefore, that we still see in forums today people saying, so how do you use the chat, or how do you make a quiz? Just because some of us have been involved since back here, it's sometimes easy to forget that people are coming in with very basic questions still. And luckily, we have some good people in the forums who are willing to dedicate some of their time just to helping people, which is absolutely brilliant. So that's the growth in users on Moodle.org, which lots of people see and are aware of, and that's cool. That's one thing. If we look, however, at the number of installations around the world and the growth there, then we can see again, these patterns will make sense if we think about things. Maybe there's a drop off in new installations here because people are thinking, oh, let's stay with 1.9, let's not go to 2, or that there are usually reasons for these slight discrepancies. But in general terms, that curve of installations is following fairly closely the curve for registered users on Moodle.org. Not surprising. However, let's look at some things which might start to be a little more surprising. This is the data on the new Moodle installations in the past 2 months. And I have to admit that I was really surprised that more than half of the new installations, more than half of the installations in the last 2 months have actually been Moodle 1.9. Now that perhaps is a question for a different session, or if someone wants to, we've got a Q&A forum at the end of this session. It's I believe it's broken. Okay, so if that's true, I don't know what it. I don't actually know what it means. I don't know why people aren't going for the new version in much higher numbers. But what it does tell me, and if we look at the actual total numbers by registration, obviously 1.9 is still huge there. What it does tell me is that when we talk about Moodle in business or anything else, it's very easy for people like myself and Martin and Tim and whoever to be thinking Moodle 2, Moodle 2.2, Moodle 2.3, where the vast majority of people are actually on 1.9 still. So that does need to be in our thoughts. Now we start to get into some really interesting stuff. I've put a note there that when you're running around on Moodle.org, reading forums and so on, it's really tempting to think that everyone is in a big university or a big school. Now, what this actually shows us is the size of the Moodle site and the number of users. Now, the number of users that are under 500 are all these way, way, way in excess of the larger sites. Now, that might suggest a number of things to me. It might suggest that the large schools and large universities, which are in this area, are very vocal on Moodle.org, whereas the smaller independent one-man bands, smaller schools, the independent trainers, the company training departments, much, much smaller. But that does beg the question who we're actually designing Moodle for. If we're putting a lot of resource into huge LDAP and network and that sort of high-end database optimizations, and if we're putting a lot of effort into that, it may be that that effort is paying back to a relatively small number of users. And it may be that we should be perhaps putting a little more focus on what are these small users doing and what do they need. So that was just interesting from that perspective, because when I actually calculated that out, and this was well worth my using Excel, because I couldn't do that in my head. So well, there's the figures: 64,000 sites with less than 1,000, and only 8,000 with more than 1,000 users. So that does mean that 90% of the Moodle sites in the world are fewer than 1,000 users. So they are into that smaller area, and that's important. I think it's important to recognise. And we can also look at the type of user. This again, this is a little choice activity that's actually on Moodle.org. Might be a little bit hidden away, I guess. Where we're asking what type of user are you? You know, what environment are you in? And we can see universities very well represented and secondary schools. But again, we've got some reasonable statistics here that 42% are not in schools or universities. You know, they're in companies, they're in others, or they're independent, and that's a significant chunk. And one thing that I always say is, you know, maybe we're reaching saturation point for universities around the world now in terms of Moodle adoption, but we're certainly nowhere near saturation point for companies and small organizations and small training providers to be using Moodle. We're probably, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 5%. you know, a tiny, tiny amount. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of growth in the user base. So, I mean, who are these other users? Who are these people that aren't schools and universities? Well, they're government departments, they're libraries, they're charities, uh, training departments within organisations is I think a larger percentage than we recognise sometimes. You know, libraries, charities, yeah, all those things. So, how do we just to backtrack a little bit, we were talking about how do we, in one of these small business type organizations or commercial sector, how do we value judge Moodle? Well, the first thing is that I've always liked that quote, you know, technology is neutral. Just because you have Moodle doesn't mean your training is going to be brilliant. It's actually going to take a lot of effort. And if you're an engineering company and you put Moodle in and think it's going to solve your problems, it's not. What's going to solve your problems is a person who really understands training and development and technology and then pushes forward. The technology is neutral. It's not going to make any difference. It's all about how you use it. The other key point is that in business context, if we're about to spend $10,000 or $20,000 on a learning management system and maybe some training for staff, or maybe bring in a trainer once a month or a content developer, we're going to want to see a return on that investment, and we're going to want to see it quickly. We don't want to put a learning management system in today and then in 3 years' time find it doesn't work. We need it to work, and we need it to work quickly. We do have a business uses area on Moodle.org. One of the forums, you can find that, just search for business uses. And traditionally it's very quiet, which is a real shame. And I think the reason it's quiet is because in business we tend to try and keep hold of our knowledge. If we share our knowledge, we see it as you know, basically giving competitors our knowledge, our hard-earned knowledge, on a plate, and that just does not sit well if you're in that business context. It's a shame because I think there are lots of very generic things which can be discussed, which would help everyone in the business uses area. And let's be honest, they would then have a competitive advantage over everyone that isn't using Moodle or isn't in that area. So I guess it depends on how you frame it. I just want to pull up a couple of very quick examples of organizations that I've personally worked with, because I thought that was the best way to do this. And just a few comments about these. Okay, so the first one, this is, and these are all New Zealand based because I wanted to do that. This is an organization, training.net.nz, run by a gentleman who actually doesn't live too far away from me. Interestingly, he moved closer to where I live a few years ago. And what he's done is a really interesting, really simple little business model. What he was a work-based assessor, so he would travel around the country, looking at working with tourism providers, and some of their staff would be going through certificates in tourism or diplomas in marketing and tourism, and he would assess them at their workplace. And what he realized was that a lot of the assessment could actually be done through Moodle. There would be things that he'd need to see, maybe see them working with a customer, but there was lots of knowledge and background material that could be delivered and assessed quite happily through Moodle. So what he's actually done is he's then built a number of courses which are aligned with the NZQA standards, which is the New Zealand Qualification Authority. So very, very similar to NVQ in the UK and so on. A competency-based unit standard approach to education. But what he's then done is he's been able to go to Ace Rentals, which is a car rental company. Stray Travel, which is one of these buses that backpackers can hop on and off. He's managed to get into the Chinese tour guiding market. There's a glowworm cave, which is very keen on having lots of accreditations and so on. So he's been able to approach each of these organizations and say, I can deliver the assessment required for your staff online. And with the stray travel, for example, it's driver training. So the drivers will drive from one location to another all around the country. They've got nothing to do at night. Well, I'm sure they have. I'm sure they might say they've got better things to do at night. But what they can do at night is just use their laptop and actually work through their course material, which is all about customer care and driving safety and et cetera, et cetera. So that's a really nice model where someone has actually created a new business for themselves by using Moodle, just by kind of going from where they were, which was very practical, a lot of travel, a lot of on-site work. Suddenly, you know, these people can sit at home a lot more, be organized, recycle materials quickly, and perform assessment that works for everyone. So that's an interesting little model. This, again, a very, very simple, small company Moodle site. This is an organization that delivers the program management professional accreditation, which is the kind of the absolute gold standard in project management. And these guys used to send out books, and these books were huge. They were like telephone directories of information. And then there was a second book, which was quizzes, pages and pages of scenario-based questions and true-false questions, and I mean, it was a huge book. And what they were able to do is actually to convert that book into online testing. And of course, the interesting thing is they saved a lot of money because they were no longer having to do all the printing and the postage. Things could happen a lot more quickly and a lot more efficiently. So that's a nice little example of just something very simple. I've chosen this one. I'm not going to talk about this one for long. It's a typical private training enterprise in New Zealand. It delivers, again, generally certificates and diplomas which are authorised by the New Zealand Qualifications Authority. It also delivers some pastoral courses, part-time courses, and courses that aren't certified officially, but people want to learn. And they have two sites, one in Auckland and one in Christchurch. And they're actually using their Moodle site as a complete intranet solution. They're actually saving all their documents on it and their agendas on it, and they've really adopted it as an organisation into their management information system in a way. And I guess there are quite a few examples of companies doing that. I only picked this one because this is the New Zealand College of Appearance Medicine. Now, appearance medicine to me says cosmetics, and I know that's probably an outrageous thing to say, but obviously it's almost like New Zealand College of Massage, who we also know. These are traditionally very hands-on, very practical areas, but even there, small organizations can realize that they can be far more efficient by delivering a lot of the content, the theory, the assessment using Moodle. It doesn't have to be face-to-face. Save those face-to-face times for things that really benefit from face-to-face and practical stuff. And the last example I just wanted to pull up here is a not-for-profit. It's a registered charity, and it's the Search and Rescue Institute of New Zealand. What was interesting about these guys is they're actually based in Christchurch, and after the Christchurch earthquake, there was a huge amount of interest from people in being trained in search and rescue techniques. It was something that perhaps had been, a fairly low level of interest, and all of a sudden, lots and lots of people being community spirited, particularly in that area, wanted to know more about search and rescue skills. And obviously, these guys are able to provide a lot of material and a lot of really good learning and information about search and rescue. And we actually hosted their site for free for a year because they're based in Christchurch, and everyone does their bit, as they say. I don't want to talk about barriers to adoption particularly, but I do want to just mention hosting. Obviously, it is a question that people always have when they're looking at Moodle in small businesses and new businesses and commercial. What's the best option? Should we outsource and host it externally, or should we host it internally and have our own servers and support and so on? They are big questions, and we might be able to have a little chat about those towards the end of this session, which is cool. One thing I would say, though, that I think needs saying, is that I think the community support for Moodle as a learning management system is better than any other learning management system I've ever seen, and almost as good as any other software application I've ever seen. I'm really hard pressed to think of anywhere, any forum, any message board that I use where I can get a quicker, more expert and more useful response than Moodle.org. It's absolutely stunning how much support you can get there. And if you need, if you need more than that, you can pay for it, and there are people that will then actually deliver a level of service that warrants your money, and that's fine. Okay. Finding content, yeah, some good comments. I'm going to flick back and have a look at some of those comments in a second. So this course, just to let you know, just going to try and navigate back. Hopefully I haven't been logged out. There you go. So that lesson that I've just sort of skipped through is basically there. And this is a course area. You can see the URL there. If you just go onto freemoodle.org, you can actually find it. This is an area that I use when I'm discussing Moodle in business. So it's an area that any of you can get to at any time, completely free, completely open, guest access. So you can review this stuff or discuss it or contribute to it, whatever. That's fine. But some of the things that I think are worth mentioning to the group here. Yeah, the URL is actually in the course area, in the in the SA 15 or whatever it is. If you go into the Moodle in Business section, there are links to this. SCORM. I'm not going to talk too much about SCORM, but I think the support for SCORM is getting better all the time. Now that's important because businesses can often buy SCORM content to drop into their courses rather than investing all that time and effort into creating content. I've recently seen a very good nursing course at Polytechnic in New Zealand, and they'd actually bought course content in SCORM format from, I think it was probably Australia, or it might have been the UK. And of course, although it needed building around, because the requirements of the nursing certification here was slightly different. But basically, they were able to get maybe 90% of their course content instantly just through SCORM objects. If you don't know what SCORM objects are, they're basically little learning objects which are packaged in a particular way that enables them to be placed in most learning management systems that support SCORM standards. Worth reading up on. There are some links to explain SCORM and some facts there. If you're not sure what SCORM is, then go and do that. What I wanted to mention, though, is just to work through some of these options quite quickly. Course completion, I think, is really important for the business sector. Very often in these business and commercial settings, we're not dealing with education in its broadest sense. We don't want people to meander around the course and just click on things that they're vaguely interested in and chat about something else. In some contexts, we actually want training. We actually want a defined start point. We want to know that people have moved through material sequentially. We want to test at various points that they've understood that. We have a much more, not necessarily linear, but a definite step and a definite desire and need to control people. And I mean, health and safety is probably a really good example, because it's no good a health and safety course just being fun and interesting. It actually has to do its job, and its job is to ensure that all those people know exactly what to do in a given situation. And we have to be able to test that and evidence it. You know, we're in a much more tightly controlled and tightly monitored and tightly assessed environment, perhaps. Now there is a lesson there on course completion. Course completion does actually need turning on in a course, and what that will do, as we'll see in a second, will simply provide little tick boxes next to activities. But you can set activities to be completed. You know, a student could tick them off themselves, or maybe an activity such as a quiz is only marked as complete when someone achieves 80%. Now, that is not the same as the grade book. You know, activity completion is not the grade book. So on this one over here, I've got course completion on Moodle Docs. If I'd looked at that and read it, I could just tick it now to say, yep, I've done that. So it's kind of as a student, it's really handy. I can track what I've completed. Notice that the box above though is grey, and that's because I can't alter that completion myself. That will only be marked complete when I've actually worked through that lesson and answered any questions, and I've actually come out the other side of that lesson as I should do. And then at that point, this tick will become complete. And as a teacher, you can view a course completion report. I'm just going to do that under the tab, hopefully. And your course completion report will, a little bit like the gradebook, is sort of listing who's in your course and the activities in your course. And here we can see that Sylvester has actually completed now that lesson on course completion, but he hasn't done his feedback and he hasn't done his quiz. And only when those two things are complete will this final tick mark actually go and be marked as complete. So it's good for students to track themselves, but it's also obviously really pretty useful for teachers to actually see what's going on there. So course completion, I think, is something very important for business use. And tied in with that, in a way, is conditional activities. Now, conditional activities, here we can see a quiz. And this quiz actually says it's restricted, and it's not available until the activity visitmoodle.org is marked as complete. So unless I've actually clicked on this visitmoodle.org and looked at it, there's no way that this quiz is going to open. So you can imagine a series of activities or documents or lessons that must be read and must be worked through, perhaps with completion ticks next to them. And until those things are done, then the end assessment quiz isn't open. But that's automatic and it's individual. So it doesn't need the teacher to go, has everyone finished yet? Can I open the quiz yet? The quiz is being opened based on that individual's achievement through their course. And that's, for me, that's huge. And it's such a usable feature for the commercial and business sector. Perhaps not so much in a school setting or a university where we want people to explore and so on. But when we need that control, I think that's absolutely brilliant. I'm just conscious of where we are. I'm going to mention enrollment plugins at this stage. Enrollment in Moodle courses is something that always seems to cause problems for commercial and small business users, and that's because they're not operating on a system where maybe at the beginning of the year a school or a university would say, right, let's enroll everyone, we'll synchronize it to our LDAP directory, or we'll use our management information student administration system, and we'll export all the users and we'll synchronize that with a script and we'll drop them all into courses and away you go. And often that's not even done by the teachers, of course. In a small business, I think people genuinely struggle with how you get people in and out of courses. One thing that's changed recently in Moodle 2.2, or 2.0 is the flexibility that we actually have with multiple enrollment systems. So I've taken a screenshot here from a course, which is a real course. So the first thing that we have is manual enrollment, which means that a teacher can just choose people by clicking on the icon and add them into a course. That's brilliant. Great. We then, in this example, have some enrollments which are controlled by date. And each of these has actually got a different enrollment key. The first two are actually hidden, so people can't enroll with the enrollment key in this period, but they could enroll, because this is visible, with the enrollment key available in this period. And that means that we can set up, if we're going to run a course 6 times during this year or every month, we can set these enrollment systems up with different enrollment keys. And of course, each of these can have a set duration, a set number of days, or a definitive start and end point. But as well as that, we can use guest access. Unlikely that we'd want that in a commercial course. We can also use meta links. So we can say if a person is enrolled in this particular course here, they are therefore automatically enrolled in this course as well. And that might be a system where you have 10 modules in a course, but you just want to enroll people into one enrollment course. So in that case, you use meta course links to enroll them everywhere. And then for business users, I think it's really interesting that we can now, for example, even though this is one course with one set of materials, we can actually charge different amounts and give people different levels of access. So I have a PayPal enrollment system here, and if you pay $100 using that PayPal option, you get 60 days access. But if you choose this PayPal option and pay just $50, you only get 30 days access. And that was always really difficult to achieve that sort of thing in Moodle before. Now it's really easy with these multiple enrollment options. So one thing that I definitely encourage smaller training providers to look at is, are you actually enrolling people into courses the smartest ways? There's a lot of different options that you actually have there now, which are worth looking at. I want to mention reporting as well. Reporting is probably one of the areas that business users think is the weakest part of Moodle. Interestingly, in Moodle 1.9, there were lots and lots of reports that were actually created. So, a detailed quiz report, looking at the total grades for all courses, looking at the course sizes. And these things were always there. They're reports. They just needed dropping in to the back end of Moodle by an administrator. And I think the problem is that quite often teachers didn't know about these things, and IT weren't necessarily going to go off and find these things. But there's a whole range of things which you can do right now. And if you're using Moodle 1.9, obviously you can do these. And I've just provided some links straight to those pages, the different types of reports that can be logged in. And they are really good. The sad thing is, of course, that as we move to Moodle 2, those reports cannot work with Moodle 2, just like, because it's a plugin, and it's like a theme or a plugin. If it's designed for 1.9, it won't work in 2. It might be fairly easy for a developer to change it to Moodle 2, or it might be a complete rewrite. And for that reason, some of these reports that are available in 1.9, I don't think we'll actually see them converted to 2.0 necessarily. However, in Moodle 2, we have some much better options. The first option is the one developed by Tim Hunt, which is the ad hoc database query. Again, I'm just going to open that in a new window. And this, if you can write basic SQL queries, then you can use this system to query your Moodle database, and it's great. Okay, it's fine, but you do need to know SQL. However, the thing that I'm recommending to so many people right now is this configurable reports option. This is absolutely brilliant because you don't necessarily need to know anything about SQL to create reports in this system. If I just zoom that out, as you can see, it can also make graphs of your information. Now, I've got some examples here. I'm just going to go into this one. We actually use this so much now that it's incredible. But we've actually organized it slightly differently to suit our purposes. So basically, when we're running a Moodle site now, we have a reports area, which is effectively just a course with labels in and the most important links. So at any time, any of our administrators can actually run into this course, look for the users logged in the last 20 days, click on view, and they will get that list. We also have the edit link right next to it because our administrator might be asked, can you show me all the users that have logged in the last 3 days? So having the link to the edit option then just enables them to quickly go in and click on that edit option. And that works really, really well. I might show you that if people are interested in that and how amazing and how easy it is to create any sorts of reports that you want, you know. Show me how many resources, oops, I forgot that's an image, sorry. Show me how many resources there are in a particular course, you know, or every course. Show me courses that are still active so I can trim out maybe the old ones, you know. This is a hugely powerful part of Moodle. It is a plugin, it's not standard, but if you're one of the people that think reporting in Moodle isn't good enough, you absolutely need to go and look at configurable reports. It's hugely, hugely brilliant. And I saw a conversation on iMoot. I didn't have a chance to post, and someone said, "What's your favourite plugin?" I think Julian started that one. For me, that is fantastic, and go look at it. Just a couple of quick things, because I'm aware we're kind of getting to the end, and I want to leave a little bit of space for questions for people. Online audio. If you are an organisation that can use audio in some way, it's always been a bit awkward in Moodle. You know, you've had Nano Gong, and although that's great, it's kind of it's always breaking, or that's certainly the way it appears to me. Big blue button is pretty cool, but does take a bit of setup. If you just have a very simple need to record audio, maybe you're teaching a language and you want people to be able to upload their French or their Spanish, this is definitely probably the best solution right now because it doesn't need anything special. It works through Flash. It doesn't need Java applets. It doesn't need streaming servers. It simply allows you to record some audio and upload that as an assignment. And if you're in that area, and we've got a few clients who are, you know, language schools or international, and that's an absolutely brilliant solution, and it's getting better all the time. It seems to be very robust now. Yeah, really good, really worth looking at if that's for you. I wanted to mention TalkBox as well. Yeah, Audacity is great, of course. Yeah. I just wanted to mention TalkBox. I'm not going to click on this because I don't know how it's going to react being video streamed within a conference here. But quite often people say to us, is there a way to integrate audio visual systems, you know, and webcams into a Moodle course? For me, the TalkBox solution is probably the easiest and smartest. We simply go to TalkBox, you register with your email address, and it gives you a little bit of code that you embed into a label, and it comes up with this. And I can literally just click on, I'm not going to do it, I can click on there, and it comes up with a little window, and it's just like Skype. It's just like working on Skype, apart from it's embedded right in your course, and it hasn't taken any special technology by you to do it. I mean, it's really good. I used to use WizIQ quite a lot. That was a, you know, one of the popular ones, but then they've changed so much how they do things now, and it's not free anymore, I don't think, and blah blah blah. WizIQ was good. One thing to say about NanoGong, because I kind of said it wasn't so good there. What I did notice, and this is yesterday, is that they've actually now released the NanoGong with Moodle 2 integration. Obviously, it was only released on the 25th of May. I haven't had a chance to try it. I couldn't tell you whether it's working, but certainly the press release, if you like, and the information around it is looking really positive. So if you were frustrated with the old version of NanoGong and it was breaking and it not reliable, might be worth checking out again, because literally as we speak, the new version has just been released, and that's cool. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of my time now. I just want to say that with this course, I've mentioned it, but rather than using PowerPoints, which I don't like to do these days, to be honest, I just find them a little bit too much. I'm just getting old. I get bored when I watch a PowerPoint. I'm sorry. But this course will, I've just pulled out a few of the things that I think are particularly important or interesting. But I mean, there's some useful things on Dropbox. I mean, Dropbox you can use as a repository in business quite easily, and even Evernote. And I'm picking up on these because I know that people in business sort of often use these Dropbox and Evernote and things like that. And you can actually use them quite effectively within Moodle courses. Themes, I haven't mentioned a lot about themes, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop sharing for now, if I can work out how to do that. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna go to the Q&A bit. Hopefully I've set this up right. Okay, but I've left a space there for a Q&A. I'm not sure how the Q&A works or whether people want to use that, but I've also put up a couple of other polls there. And I just wonder, having sort of been through this and seen your comments and your little chat messages going past and so on, I'm wondering if, where people are perceiving Moodle in the business sector now, and that's really interesting that we should have, I think we should have a high level now for will it continue to grow in the business sector? I think yes, it will. I think at some stage businesses will get more and more turned on to Moodle because one of the things that's happened is it's got a hell of a lot better looking. And that was one of the things that I think held businesses back, is that Moodle looked a bit ugly. And when you've got a salesman coming into your office and showing the managing director some whizzy flash front end, then they're influenced by that, and they think, oh yeah, we'll go for that one because it looks good, and almost no perception about the educational value that's behind it, which is a real shame. So yes, I think we're right there. I think I would agree. Yes, it can look professional, but it's more than just the theme. You need a good theme, but then you also need really good course design and really sensible layouts, and paying attention to those things. I'm saying that obviously as a graphic designer, with my graphic design hat on. I'm saying these courses need to look attractive. There's no reason they should look ugly anymore. So yeah, I think it takes effort. That's fine. And how does Moodle compare? Yeah, I'd always hesitate to say it's the best, but that's simply because I don't know every learning management system out there, and there may be some really big advantages of desire to learn which I haven't seen yet. But I think we've got to agree that it's better than most. Some great comments coming through there as well. Collaborative change. Yeah. Absolutely. Supply chain management is something that we deal with all the time in business. But why aren't we training more of our customers and more of our suppliers directly? Why aren't we linking in our training programs with each other and streamlining what we need to do? I think it's difficult, and I think the barrier, if you like, is still back to that thing about we don't want to share because if we share, we're giving stuff away. and you don't do that in business. It's a culture change. I mentioned that early on. I really think that using Moodle effectively in businesses and commercial settings is as much about organizational change and culture change. It's as much about that as it's about the technology. Some great comments here. I wish I could have picked up on everything as we were going. But of course, all this gets captured, doesn't it? All this gets recorded, and we'll be able to play this back. And if it's really good, I may even just play this back for the repeat session. I might not say anything. I wonder if I can just play back the whole session. See, that's efficient. That's efficient. So we've got some questions. Teresa figured out something before. Yep, there's a question. Is configurable? Okay, so I can see the question and answer forum as well here. I've got a couple of questions, and one from Gareth is configurable reports maintained as in the old database? I don't think Gareth. I think that the configurable reports actually did start out as a Moodle 1.9 plugin, but I'm pretty sure that it's only being developed now for Moodle 2. I could be wrong, but that's definitely my thinking at the moment. Hopefully that answered that. Some schools, yeah, Bill, I think that's really true. Quite often people think that the IT guy can handle the learning system, and of course it's very different, isn't it? Yeah, Martin, I think that's a good point. Is that you don't necessarily, you know, when you have your meetings to decide on LMSs or which direction you're going or whatever, you know, cost isn't always the biggest factor. It's a factor, but yeah, I think the flexibility. I think what you've said there, the flexibility to add in modules and to disable bits, and the fact that it's open source and you can get to the back end if you really need to. I think that's the biggest argument, really. It gives you that huge flexibility. Stuart, you know, have a good open source student management system. There are a few floating around, aren't there? There are a few. There's the open. Oh goodness, I'm trying to think what it is when it's CRM, something CRM, and the guy posts quite often on Moodle.org about the. Yeah, there are. Yeah, there's not a really good one. I think that's a good point, Julian. But I mean, there is OpenSIS, which is probably the best out there right now. So I might just start my webcam there for a second as we get to the end, and I'm not screen sharing anymore. Well, hopefully that was interesting. You can continue to post questions in the discussion forum in the course area. Maybe we can answer some more things there. Hopefully that was interesting and stimulated some thoughts or ideas. Obviously you can review this later on. I'll come back to the second session with really difficult questions. You could do that. But it's been obviously a pleasure to see everyone here. Some obviously people that I recognise, some people that I don't, which is just as cool. And you can get to that course at any time and use it. And hopefully that's provided you with a good kind of overview of some of the things in there, and you can just crack on and you know, develop as you go. Okay. Worth staying up late for. Well, that's the main thing. If it's England now, if it's going on to midnight, you need to go to bed, and you'll probably be dreaming about Moodle in business for the next few hours. So thank you very much, everyone. pleasure to see you, and I thought it was good.
Hello everyone, Julian here, that infamous voice of God I think I come across as. Look, obviously on behalf of the iMoot team, just want to do a big thank you for Stuart. It's a fantastic presentation, and I certainly think that the attendees got a lot out of it. The questions are certainly coming thick and fast. We've still got some time before the next session kicks in, so feel free to do some more questions if Stuart will take them. Otherwise, again, thank you all for coming to iMoot, and thank you, Stuart, for helping make it a success.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thanks, Julian. Thanks so much. Thanks for the whole conference, obviously. I know people are probably going to say that all the time, but absolutely amazing what you guys are doing. And I'm so glad it's you and not me. But yeah, I'm happy to spend another 5 minutes here. If people want to ask questions, if you want to disappear, that's cool.